Okay.
With the new Fast and the Furious movie out in theaters, the internet is abuzz with memes about Dominic Toretto's favorite topic.
Family. Family. Family.
And with all the talk of family, I couldn't help but think of my favorite family in the world of video games, the family of Donkey Kong. And to be completely honest with you, when I started working on this video, I was just planning on doing a tier list, something really simple, but the more that I learned, the more questions I had. And so let's together look at the complexities and the tragedy of Donkey Kong's family tree. Before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of the stuff that we put up every week. Let's get to it. It all started back in 1981 when the world was introduced to Donkey Kong in the arcades, something that I talked about in my Mario video, which you can find at the card above. The giant ape that served as the game's namesake was the bad guy this time around, but that wouldn't last. In fact, it was only 1 year later when Donkey Kong would become a good guy and would need to be saved by his son, Donkey Kong Jr. About a decade later, in 1994, the Donkey Kong family would grow even more, with a bunch of new characters being added into the fold. So let's take a look at this family tree and try to figure out exactly where everyone fits in. So of course we start off with Donkey Kong himself at the beginning, the antagonist of the original video game, and then a captor in the second one, Donkey Kong Jr. Not a lot to be said about him in his original state. He's a bad guy, he captures a lady, and then Jumpman, who later becomes Mario, goes and stops him. But before we can get to Donkey Kong Jr., we have to talk about the fact that Donkey Kong himself actually got married, and in fact got old. And the original Donkey Kong is not the same Donkey Kong that you play as in pretty much every other Donkey Kong game. In fact, the Donkey Kong from the Donkey Kong series is the grandson of the original Donkey Kong. So how do we get to the grandson? Well, it's pretty simple. The original Donkey Kong turns into Cranky Kong, who at some point got married to another Kong, which is a species of itself. They're not orangutans and gorillas and chimpanzees. The Kong in of itself is its own species. But either way, Donkey Kong aged into being Cranky Kong, and he married a female Kong, which at one point was called Mrs. Donkey Kong. We only ever know her as Wrinkly Kong, and she shows up in Donkey Kong Country 2 and serves as kind of a helper to Diddy and Dixie, the two main characters of that game. In the sequel, Donkey Kong Country 3, she actually moves into a cave and takes care of these banana birds and eventually kind of seems to be spiritually guided by them, which is all well and good for her. She must have been preparing herself for the fact that she was going to die. That's right, in canon, Donkey Kong's wife is dead. And this is just scratching the surface of the wonderful truths that we have to come to. A real, Disney kind of family, this one, where in that I mean a lot of them are dead. So Cranky and Wrinkly have a son, and we know him as Donkey Kong Jr., and through pretty much every game that he's ever been featured in, he has been portrayed as like a baby still, as Donkey Kong Jr. So even if you're playing like, say, Mario Golf, or something where Donkey Kong Jr. is a separate character and Donkey Kong is another character, most likely you're playing as the dad as a child, and then his son as the adult. Now, of course, you can't stay a baby forever, but there is one occurrence of Donkey Kong Jr. being an adult. It was something that wasn't officially released, but was teased in the pages of a Nintendo Power magazine, issue number 69, wherein some promotion for the new Donkey Kong Land game, which was coming out for the Game Boy, they had this picture of a Kong that never was actually used, which now has been dubbed by the Donkey Kong community as Fedora Kong, which people are saying is Donkey Kong Jr. grown up. Did he ever show up in a game for sure? No. Is it fun for us to look at this picture of a Donkey Kong character and pretend that it's Donkey Kong's dad? Yes, absolutely, that's a fun thing to do. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, based on dialogue and everything from the game, we can gather that he had a number of children, and we don't know who his spouse was or any of that, but we do know that Cranky did end up raising some of these children. So whether or not Donkey Kong Jr. Fedora Kong was the kind of guy who would stick around, or was just somebody who, again, might have died, because it's something we've established can happen in this universe. Either way, he was not around to raise some of his kids. But the first one of his kids we're going to talk about is a guy named Swanky Kong. Swanky Kong shows up in Donkey Kong Country 2 for the first time. He is in charge of like mini games and everything. He's very fancy, dressed in like sparkly, sequiny suits, but doesn't seem to be, you know, that into going on adventures and everything like a lot of his relatives. Now, we don't know exactly the birth order on these, but he has a brother named Funky Kong, and Funky Kong has been in the Donkey Kong games from Donkey Kong Country moving forward. Now, Funky has had kind of the biggest amount of change in his character when it comes to, you know, what they can do in the game. Originally non-playable, you go to him and he helps you travel between worlds with the use of his airplanes that he owns. Eventually he starts charging you in the sequels to use them, so you know his relationship with the characters that you play as in those ones, obviously not as strong as the relationship that he has with his brother, but either way, eventually in Donkey Kong 64 he starts equipping you with ammo. He has Funky's armory, but then when it comes to the Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, he becomes a playable character, which is essentially like the easy mode for the games. He doesn't have any kids that we know of. There are some people that speculate maybe Diddy Kong is his child, but there's also some dialogue in games that would lead us to believe that he's just another uncle. And so we're gonna put him there, but knowing that any of Donkey Kong the Third's brothers could be Diddy's dad, we just don't necessarily have that concrete evidence. Another fun one for me, the one that looks the most like he could be Fedora Kong's kid, is Uncle Kong, which his whole identity is being an uncle. Now, Uncle Kong has not shown up in any game ever. He only exists in the pages of the player's guide for Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Quest, where he gives you hints on things you can do in the game. Again, not mentioned in the actual game, created for this player's guide that was only released in Japan. But just look at this guy. He is absolutely related to Fedora Kong. I hope that someday we can see him in the actual series, maybe in a racing game, put him in Mario Party, Smash Bros. Come on, let's get on this, Nintendo. And then finally we get to Donkey Kong as most of us know him. The Donkey Kong that's featured in Super Smash Bros. That's in all like the Mario Kart games and starring in Donkey Kong Country and then from then on. This is the big guy, the guy with the tie and everything. And he is romantically involved with Kiddy Kong, who, again, no relation. Candy serves as the save point in the original Donkey Kong game. She kind of disappears when Donkey Kong himself is not featured in some of the games where he's been captured, but she does show up again in Donkey Kong 64. And something that is, you know, a little different for her compared to other romantic links to main characters in video games is that, like, she's not in distress at all. She's not the person who you're going to save. She's just there and in fact is helping you, which, you know, is a pretty fun change to get when it comes to these kind of things. And then we have the Mystery Kong, who might exist or might be filled with one of Donkey Kong the Third's brothers, and that is the dad of Diddy Kong. We don't know exactly who it is. No matter what the case, we know for sure that Diddy is Donkey Kong the Third's nephew, and so they do go on adventures together, and they are the prominent duo featured in the series. Diddy has gone on to have his own games, specifically that of Diddy Kong's Racing, which a lot of people put up there even above Mario Kart 64 when it's talking about kart racing games. For me, the jury's still out, but still a good time. And this is where our family tree is actually going to split into a second family tree, because Diddy has a girlfriend himself, a lot like his uncle, and his girlfriend's name is Dixie Kong. And Dixie and Diddy team up in Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Quest, to go and find Donkey Kong. Dixie is able to use her ponytail to kind of float around, which makes her pretty much the best character to use in a lot of the games that she's in, because to have that extra time to be able to react and platform is always nice, at least for me, because, you know, I'm not very good. And as I mentioned, Dixie has a family of her own, which starts off with that of her sister. Again, unknown parents. They could be dead. They could be just not shown. Maybe that's nice. Maybe let's just assume that. We've just never met them. We've never needed to meet them. But she does have that sister, Tiny Kong, which shows up in Donkey Kong 64. Like all of the Kongs that show up in Donkey Kong 64, she has a number of abilities. She can float through the air, a lot like her sister, but she can also shrink in size to go to special areas. Overall, a fun character to play as, especially in that last boss fight when you fight King K. Rool and you go into his shoe and fight his toes. Pretty memorable. And Dixie and Tiny have extended family as well. They have 2 cousins, which again, we don't know who their parents are, but their names are Chunky and Kiddy Kong. Now, Chunky goes along with Tiny in Donkey Kong 64, where Kiddy goes with Dixie Kong in Donkey Kong Country 3. Now, are you keeping track of all of this? Now, Chunky, being in Donkey Kong 64, again, has a number of abilities. Chunky is strong, even stronger than Donkey Kong himself, and is able to grow and to lift large objects like rocks that block paths and everything. So he's got a bazooka also that you can use in that game, which is a lot of fun. And Kiddy is, the strong guy in the game that he's in, but he is a baby, which is always a little concerning. I mean, look, he has a pacifier even. He is an infant being forced to go into fight crocodile people. Donkey Kong is awesome. And then lastly, we have a member of the Kong family who does not fit into any of the family trees, and that is Lanky Kong. Lanky Kong is like long limbs. He can stretch out, turn into a balloon, and fly around, do handstands, and run around on his hands. Frankly, I think he's pretty fun to play as. But he looks a lot like one of the bad guys in the original Donkey Kong Country called Mankeys. And so Lanky, Manky, it kind of fits together too. Is he related to them? I sure hope not, because they are maybe the scariest bad guys in the entire series. So now that we know where all of the Kong family kind of fit in with each other, let's go ahead and actually rank them real quick. All right, so first we got Cranky Kong. Cranky, the original Donkey Kong, obviously started it all. As a character himself, Cranky is fun because he's real crotchety and just not pleasant, and that makes him fun to be around, at least in a game, like not in real life. But he does obviously care for his family as well, because he took in Donkey Kong the Third and raised him, and obviously did a pretty good job. I mean, just look at him. Is Donkey Kong the most underrated character in a Nintendo series? I think he might be, but Cranky is going to be an A tier for me easily. Next we get to Donkey Kong Jr., or remember, Fedora Kong. He disappears. It's hard to rank what looks like a child so low, but he's easily going to be D tier, the lowest tier that I have here on this list, because he's just gone. Now maybe it's not his fault, but looking at Fedora Kong, he looks like he went out for bananas and just never came back. Donkey Kong the Third, though, his son, S tier. He's one of my favorite characters to play in Smash Bros. He's just big and strong and super confident wearing that tie without any pants on. So S tier for Donkey Kong. The only person I think is going to beat him is Diddy Kong, because just look at that swagger. Look at that hat. He's got a jetpack and he's got dual peanut pistols. Just a cool dude. He can cartwheel. I mean, I can't cartwheel. I never could cartwheel. Diddy can cartwheel. So he's cooler than me. S tier. And we get to Candy Kong, and she doesn't really have a lot of negatives going for her, but she doesn't have a lot going for her either. She doesn't show up in a bunch of the games, and almost every game she shows up in, she's non-playable. It is a perk for her, again, that she's not a damsel in distress, and is useful and fun, and likes Donkey Kong. It's nice to see a loving relationship. They enjoy each other. We're gonna give Candy Kong a B. Funky Kong is real cool and very useful when you're trying to just kind of play the games for fun, the newer ones where like you can't get hurt by spikes and you can float through the air and everything. He's trying very hard to be cool. I mean, look at him. Look at the tank top and those cut off jeans and that bandana. He's just the coolest, but he's trying very hard to be cool. Do we accept it? I accept. A for Funky Kong. Dixie Kong is also good. She's going to be A tier. She's got that hair move, like I said. And that hair move is going to make her so good that I'm going to move her up to S tier. S tier for Dixie Kong. Now, when it comes to Kiddy Kong, though, I've got to put him in C, and I don't know if that's his fault or what. I just am not into the little baby, like being in like this mortal danger. It's not his fault, right? That shouldn't make me rank him low, but also he's a little baby. What personality does he have? I look at him, he's a monkey. You say, oh, he's a cute baby monkey. They're like all cute monkeys, so it's not like he even gets extra points really for being that cute. C is where Kiddy's gonna go for me. If you grew up playing Donkey Kong Country 3, I'm sure you're gonna say, Seth, you fool. But you probably have said that like 8 times already. He's gonna have some company down there. Swanky Kong is gonna be even below him. Again, just trying real hard, really just giving it his all when it comes to that persona of being super fancy, and it's just a lot of work and a lot for me, so I'm going to put him down at C. Wrinkly Kong is going to go ahead and get right below Candy Kong. She's useful, again, helping with saving. She teaches you things in the game at the Kong College, and then she dies. But unlike all these other characters that are just gone when they die, she shows up as a ghost and continues to be helpful and be there for you. Tiny Kong, again, gonna be down in B tier. She's kind of like a copy of her sister Dixie, but she does have more powers, but she's in Donkey Kong 64, which is really hit or miss in like how I feel about it. Like I remember loving it, but when I go back to it, it's not quite as fun as I remember, but you know, still a good time. But Tiny for me as a character and everything, she's just oozing the 90s, and not in like a Funky Kong kind of way, but more in like a, well, look at that. That is what the 90s was like. Chunky Kong is gonna be right there with her. He's funny, at least, but you know, again, that's what everybody looked like in the 90s. Trust me, I remember, I was there. And then comes Lanky Kong, which I'm sure I'm gonna get like roasted for this one, because I love Lanky. Lanky is like my favorite out of all of the 5 in the Donkey Kong 64 to play as, and I wish he was around more. Now, he does show up in some of the Donkey Kong racing games, but I think that we need more Lanky when it comes to the platforming. Yeah, he's gonna go A tier for me. I'm not gonna put him above Funky. I'm not gonna get too crazy, but he's definitely A tier. Now, Uncle Kong wasn't going to get rated for me because it wasn't in a game, but he's obviously going to be down here in D tier as well. Just taking after his old man. Look at that hat. I bet he found his dad and took it from him. And that's going to finish up this video. Thanks for coming along with me on this little journey to learn about Donkey Kong's family tree. If you enjoyed the video, if you could please give it a like, that'd be super helpful for me. If you could subscribe to the channel, that'd be even more so. And on top of that, if you could share this video out there to people who you think might enjoy it too, that would be super, super awesome. So thanks again for being here. I hope to see you again next Saturday as we take a look at something else.